Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Creative Exploration series. In this episode, I wanted to talk about something that I call the numbers game. First, I'll kind of discuss it and explain what it is, and then I'll go into details why exactly it should be avoided like the plague. So, the numbers game, and it probably goes under a lot of different names, but this is something that every artist experiences at least once in their life, and probably far, far more frequently than that. So, basically, what it is just watching your social media numbers, like your likes, your follows, your plays, your views, all that stuff, and just like sitting down and obsessing over the fluctuations of those numbers and like comparing those numbers to the numbers of other people and like wishing your numbers were bigger. And it's a huge problem and a huge waste of time, and I know I personally have experienced it in the past, and I've pretty much every person I've ever talked to has had the same problem at least once in their life. And now I have to stop for a second because obviously you should be aware of your site's stats and traffic. So like watching the numbers is okay, like, but obsessing with them over them is not. Like you have to keep an eye out on how people interact with your work and your media. I mean, you are an artist and you are a business person, and you have to know what's working well with the media that you're putting out, but you also have to like cultivate a better experience for your followers. So, if one thing doesn't work, then you can move on from that and try something else. But you don't want to obsess over it. So, like, watching the numbers is fine, but obsessing over it is really bad. Or comparing yourself to other people. And because it's really, really easy to turn number counting into like a competition, and you just like sit there and look at like your plays for the month, and you look at other people's plays like on their songs. And as an artist, this is so heavily self-destructive that it really can slow down your progression as an actual artist, because you end up in this negative feedback loop where all you're doing is just feeling worse and worse about yourself. And the problem is with this is that there will always be somebody who is better than you at what you do. And like, sorry, but that's just kind of how it is. And there's always going to be somebody who's more popular than you. And basically what you're doing is you're like trying to fight this battle that you have no control over at all. Like you can't control their plays or their views or their likes. And you have some control over what you do, but that's down to the social media in general. And what this can do is it just leads to self-doubt and frustration, and that whole feeling can flow over into affecting your just general day-to-day mood and your artistic output. Like this, at least in me, at least once or twice back when I was just starting with music, this can really create artistic paralysis, where you're just sitting there wondering why you're not doing any better than you are. And all of that time thinking about it should have been used to make things, and get better at what you're doing. And if you get wrapped up in this, it starts to become this kind of like race where you have to beat other artists. And it's like, that's not how it works when you're making stuff, because every artist has like these hopes and dreams, and you can't just sit down and say to yourself, well, I don't have as many numbers as this person, so I'm never going to be that good. That you're not living up to your potential that way. It's like, if you're comparing just those numbers to somebody else's numbers, nothing's really going to happen. It just leads to kind of, it can lead to, not like, it doesn't always lead to, but it can lead to like some real toxicity on social media. Not always passive aggressive going after somebody else, but just talking about yourself in a real self-deprecating way, like, oh well, I'm just not famous, and I don't like this, and why am I not, it's like all that self-deprecating stuff on social media. And it can start to create kind of a negative environment in artistic communities as well. Like if you have a music community, or if you have like an art community or something like that, and all you do is just talk about why certain people are famous and why you aren't, or why people in this group aren't. And it's just like, it just leads to all these really negative and just bad emotions, you know? And most ironically from all this, you can actually eventually start losing followers because of it, because all you're doing is being so negative all the time. And most people don't want negativity on like their Facebook feeds or their Twitter feeds. And beyond that, you're not really creating an atmosphere that's really conducive to creative exploration. Like, you're investing all of this time thinking about how bad you are compared to other people, and all that time could be spent invested in making things and improving yourself, you know? And there is something to be said about creating things specifically to get more followers, and that's not exactly a bad idea, but depending on how you do it, it could be like artistically compromising. So what I mean by that is if you're doing like song covers or remixes, or if you're drawing something in a popular IP, and you know, that's a really good way to find more fans, you know, because those people like those certain things. But most of the time, you're probably going to gain followers and not fans. And there's definitely a difference between those two. A follower is somebody that likes that one thing that you did that one time, you know? And that might not be the case when you start posting creative work that's more like true to yourself again. And that means that they'll be less likely to evangelize your work to their friends, and they might eventually unfollow. And, you know, seeing your number go down is worse than like seeing it not go up at all, you know? And that's not to say that you can't do that, but I don't think like exclusively doing things to get more fans, like just always doing remix of the popular song of the week or something like that, like eventually you'll definitely pick up fans, but you're also going to have a lot of like pickup of followers and drop off of followers, and your numbers will fluctuate a lot more. And if you're doing this specifically for followers and not just because you love making covers of popular music, you're going to have anxiety attacks like every week when you see things bounce up and down and up and down, you know? And there's another thing that you should really keep in mind when you are thinking about followers, is that most of those numbers are just lies anyway. Like, there are tons of bots out there, and there are tons of people that are stuck in this numbers game, and they're all artificially inflating your numbers with the hope of reciprocation. Like, they follow you with the expectation that you'll follow back, or they'll like your post, or they'll they'll do something with the expectation that you'll do the same thing over there. So everybody's numbers are bigger. It's like, just don't get wrapped up in that, because it's a huge waste of time. I mean, unless obviously if somebody likes your stuff and you like look at their stuff and it's pretty cool. It's like, obviously as an artist, you can go out and explore this stuff, but don't just re-like somebody or re-follow somebody just because, you know, they followed you. It's just, sorry. It's like one of those things. And it's like, having big numbers doesn't mean that makes you a smarter person or an expert at anything. It's just like, you just suddenly have an audience, which is great. It's great to have an audience. It's great to be able to convey your work to them, but that doesn't mean that you have credibility. It's just like empty calories, you know? And I've found the best way to counteract this is to just turn off notifications. Like in Facebook, you can turn off likes and shares, and Twitter, you can turn off likes and follows and retweets and all this other stuff. And it's like, it's not easy to do because, you know, you like getting those notifications that somebody liked something you said or did, you know? But in the very least, just be mindful of this and avoid that line of thinking that all of a sudden you have to get the biggest numbers or else you're not going to be popular, you know? And I mean, if it was just as easy as don't look at the numbers, this wouldn't be as much of a problem. But social media gamifies these numbers on purpose. And I mean, that's their thing after all, because that's how they get views and that's how they get revenue. They want to hook people in with all of the happy feelings that they are going back and forth. And once you get sucked in with those numbers, you don't really want to let go, you know? And when you don't get notified when somebody follows you or likes your work, you have a lot more space to think about your work. So you have more time to think about what you're doing and what you want to do in the future and plan and just make stuff in general. And this allows you to devote more time to responding and interacting with people who actually take the time to reach out to you rather than just clicking a single button. And it helps you be a more active artist in your community with the ability to respond to people rather than just like clicking a like. So you're able to sit down and like craft reviews of people's work rather than just being like, oh, I like this, click. And it's one of the reasons why I really like the phrase be remarkable, because it talks about if you make things worth noticing, you will get noticed. And if you convey yourself in a remarkable way, people will remark on it and tell others. And gaining numbers this way is a very slow process, but that's okay. I mean, this isn't a race. In the end, your numbers probably won't go up very fast, and the numbers that you have won't change the final product of what you're making. Like, if you feel like you're going to make a better piece of art because you have more people following you, that's the wrong line of thinking. So just don't get invested in it. It's not a game. There's like no high score and nobody is crowned a winner because of it, okay? Just go out and make things. Okay, I got a little worked up there. But seriously, like, do you have any thoughts or comments on this? Has this affected you in the past? Like, I can imagine that it's affected everybody, but seriously, myself and everybody I've talked to in the past, this has been something that's affected them fairly seriously at least once. And, you know, having said that, of course, I always appreciate people boosting my signal on social media and getting the word out there. But that's really only if you found this video informative and inspiring. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm just doing this because I want better numbers. I want to reach people with these videos. And if you do like it, please consider subscribing to this channel, because I will be making more content like this in the future, and that it means a lot to me to be able to do that to people. So I will see everybody in the next video, and thank you for watching. Be remarkable.